So, for me, this has been a week full of the First Amendment right to freedom of speech. As you all know, 2 days ago, when I'm recording this, 2 days ago, then Charlie Kirk, probably the biggest proponent and positive exerciser of the First Amendment right to freedom of speech, was assassinated here in Utah at Utah Valley University while exercising his right to freedom of speech and while encouraging others to do so as well. My family mourns his loss. I personally mourn his loss. I've been a big fan of Charlie Kirk. I like what he's done. I like the movement that he's built. And I like to watch his dialogue that he has with people. He maintains civility. He speaks directly. He speaks truthfully and engages with the opposition. He engages with people who disagree. He invites them to the microphone first. And so he's really stood for that freedom of speech, and he stood for God, and he stood for family. He stood for family values, and the things that he advocates for and has defended are things that I agree with and that I appreciate the way that he engages in that. But regarding the freedom of speech, he's been a staunch defender of that, and has allowed other people to do that as well. And so it's so tragic that somebody did this to him while exercising that. And it absolutely was an attack on the freedom of speech and intended to silence somebody that they disagree with, and probably intended to cause fear in others to not speak out and to be careful what they say, completely against the concept of the freedom of speech that is so important to our American society and to what we stand for, and that enables us to have a free society. Because without the freedom of speech, then if we can't say what we feel or say what we want, if the government's in control of that, then we really can't have any of the other freedoms. Now, Charlie Kirk has inspired thousands and millions of people now in the wake of his tragic assassination to stand up. We can't fill his shoes. Even a million of us can't fill his shoes. But if thousands and millions of us stand up and exercise our rights and stand up for what's right, then I think we can have a positive influence on those around us and on our society. And I think we should exercise it like he did, in a civil manner, not in an uncivil manner. But even in an uncivil manner, there's a right to that speech. So I say that this is a week of First Amendment right of freedom of speech. It's not just because of Charlie Kirk that happened on Wednesday. I started the week in court dealing with speech, dealing with unpleasant speech, and with arguing First Amendment freedom of speech and arguing a Supreme Court case on that. And that right to freedom of speech prevailed, and with that outcome. And so I started the week thinking about the right of freedom of speech, and then with Charlie Kirk's assassination, then that's definitely on mind. And then today, last day of the week, today's Friday, then I learned of a local public school here in southern Utah, or at least a teacher at a school, that told a parent of a child that their child cannot wear a shirt that had a picture of President Donald Trump on it, because the teacher said that it was the school's policy not to permit political attire in the classroom. Now, I don't know if it's really the school's policy or if it's just the teacher's own policy or stated policy, because the particular teacher is apparently pretty far left. And so I'm trying to gather more information about the situation. And once I have a little bit more information, I'm going to be going to the school board with it. And because our school board, I think, will stand up for the right to freedom of speech. It's unconstitutional to tell a child that they can't wear a simple shirt depicting something political, And a picture of the President of the United States is not political. I mean, that's the picture of the President of the United States. So I ended the week on a First Amendment note, freedom of speech, where that's being abridged. This policy, whether it's the teacher's policy or the school's policy, is an abridgment of the right to freedom of speech, and can't be tolerated, should not be tolerated. And so this week it's been a First Amendment right to freedom of speech week. I am grateful that my own children's school does not abridge freedom of speech. My own child just yesterday he had a USA shirt on, and he wore some Trump socks, Donald Trump socks that had some little like Donald Trump hair kind of thing coming off of each sock with a little picture of Donald Trump. And I don't think he got any flack from any teachers or administrators or anything like that for those goofy socks. So I'm glad that that's not widespread here in Washington County. So it's been a freedom of speech kind of week in honor of Charlie Kirk and the amazing work that he has done. I personally plan to exercise my own freedom of speech more often, and to be a little bit more direct and a little bit louder than I have been in the past. Now, this channel right here, Utah Child Law, the focus of this channel is not to speak out. I'm not going to be dealing with politics or anything like that on this. This is a channel intended for parents and grandparents and people who are going through family conflict to have a resource, have some information that might help you in your own case, or to help provide a basic understanding of child custody, child abuse actions. So originally I was going to record something about this case that has a freedom of speech issue in it and how it relates to family law. And I'll do that another time and talk more specifically about that. But in the wake of Charlie Kirk and in the wake of today hearing about this other situation about a child in our schools having their freedom of speech abridged, then I wanted to address more broadly this concept and bring that out. So I think we should fight for the freedom of speech. I think it should be exercised civilly and appropriately and freely. But I also think we should fight for people who have uncivil communication and who engage in speech that we don't like, that we don't appreciate, but they still enjoy that right and should have that right, and we should fight for that right to have that protected speech. So that's my thoughts today. Different than most of my videos that I've done, and different than most of the videos that I will do. But I wanted to have more of a frank reflection on this right to freedom of speech because of what's happened this week. So those are my thoughts.